the style of testing questions that are going to come up on the course and in the exam, obviously, at the end. So this is just a classic case study, but as we said in class, 4 or 5 questions. In this case, it's 4 questions relating to one particular business and the operations at a certain time. Okay, so we've got down here, just as I was talking about in class, first question, AO1, describe 2 possible factors that have contributed to the growth of globalization. So that's not linked to anything in particular in the case. The case might give you hints, but you don't need to apply it to the case study. You can if you want to try and maybe show your understanding of the case, but there's no particular business to apply your answer to in this question. And then the second question, we've got an AO4, draw the ANSOS matrix and use it to explain, so this is a 2-part, explain AO2 to the growth strategies used by McDonald's. So both these, if you remember, we actually did together in class. But then the actual case had a 3rd and 4th question, a C and D. So C, again, another AO2, analyze the possible impacts of multinational companies like McDonald's on the host countries. So here we're going to build arguments in terms of positive impacts and negative impacts on the countries that McDonald's moves into. And then, but no conclusion needed. Again, you can conclude, but you're not going to lose any marks, and it might help you gain some understanding marks. But the command word is not necessarily telling us to do that. But the AO3 command word, again in D, discuss the effectiveness of the think locally, grow globally strategy used for 9 marks. So again, we're going to build an argument to say how it is effective, how it isn't effective, the positives of it, the negatives of it. So 2 arguments for, 2 arguments against, and then we're going to conclude overall what we think of the effectiveness of this strategy. So just as we talked about in class, same layout. It's almost an identical layout every time. AO1, moving up to AO2 questions, and then finishing with an AO3 question. So we won't bother looking at the first 2 questions as we did them in class. But as I said to you, the key is the application to the case, being able to find evidence in the case and use that evidence to build your answers to the questions. So the first thing I always look for is, as I said in class, what are the stakeholders involved? Who are they? What are they interested in? And how are they being impacted by this business in this case? So you want to be looking out for that when you read through, make notes on the margins. You also want to be looking for how successful has the business been, how successful are its strategies that maybe it talks about in the case. And also another main thing which we talked about in class is how competitive the market is, or how well they're doing in that market. So there are 3 sort of main things that can usually help you build a lot of evidence, especially into your big mark answers. So if we just look through the case again, try and just pick out any stakeholders. So straight away, we've got McDonald's senior managers on the top line. In the US, headquarters realized that they should not apply identical American standards worldwide. They realized that McDonald's must now think locally to grow globally. So what we can say is the managers have an interest in taking account of what local cultures want to see in the McDonald's in order to help McDonald's grow globally. So we've got the head of McDonald's in the UK, came up with some strategic change and tactics two objectives: attract new and different customers, to enhance the good value of products to appeal to customers during a recession. So we can say the customers as the stakeholders here are being affected by the recession and are also being influenced by McDonald's new strategy to offer local cultural foods. So we've got two stakeholders already, the senior managers and the customers. And what do we have? An example of one of the stakeholder customers, the young mothers, trying to attract them. So their interest might be in pleasing their children, giving them smaller meals. We have the health conscious customers, so another stakeholder. What else do we have? Third paragraph, fourth paragraph. Where are we here? We've got any more stakeholders? Okay, local construction material and local labour are used. So maybe that might help us in terms of linking to this last question. And D, discuss the effectiveness of the strategy. And also in C, the impacts on the host countries. Well, we could say a positive impact is hiring local labour. They are one of the stakeholders that are being positively influenced by McDonald's moving into the country. And then we look at the other stakeholders, the competitors, KFC and Starbucks here, using a similar strategy to McDonald's. So maybe we can assume from that that it is a competitive market. Okay, if they've got two other competitive stakeholders copying their strategies already. Okay, so we've got quite a few stakeholders to write about there. We want to look at the success of the company. We could say, obviously, in this paragraph, they don't seem to have been that successful with certain customers because they don't have the right proportional size in terms of their meals on the menu. But in this paragraph, it says McDonald's had 13 million more customers in 2010 compared to 2009, resulting in an increase in market share. So we can indicate that this is where the case study is talking about the success of McDonald's so far. And here, in other host countries, McDonald's also successfully implemented its Think Locally, Grow Globally strategy. So again, more talk about it being successful here. All right, so we've managed to cover those three things that I told you to look for when we're trying to gain evidence to apply to our answers. We've looked at how all the different stakeholders, the managers, the customers, the local labour and the competitors are being impacted by McDonald's. We're looking at the problems that they've had and their successes, and we're looking at how competitive the market is. All right, now you won't get that in every case study, you won't be able to tick all of those boxes, but that sort of guideline will help you to look for evidence. So we were approaching this one. C, analyse the possible impacts of multinational companies like McDonald's on host countries. All right, we can talk about the positive impacts in terms of offering local foods, and then we can use the evidence in the case and mention the fact that they've brought these different products into India, Japan, Canada. We can look at the positive impact on hiring local labour. So again, that builds our argument. But we've also got to look at the negatives as well. So if we're coming into these foreign countries, how might we affect them? Maybe causing the loss of business for local businesses that are set up there. Maybe we might have pressure groups that aren't happy that we're coming in. McDonald's is coming in with an unhealthy product. Okay, so we can build our argument for and against in that sense for C. And then D, discuss the effectiveness of Think Locally, Grow Globally used by McDonald's. Well, we've got arguments to say it's been successful, okay, because we use the evidence from the case. They've got 13 million more customers. And then we need to build arguments to say, well, maybe it's not that effective, maybe it's not that successful. What we could do maybe is link it to Ansos's matrix and talk about how some of their strategies are risky. It's difficult to know whether it's going to work in a new market. We could discuss how effective might it be based on the fact that the competitors are doing the same strategy, KFC and Starbucks, so they don't really have a unique selling point there. So basically every argument we do, we build with some sort of evidence from the case. Okay, and then in that one, in D, we would finally just conclude, because it's an AO3, how effective we think it is. So we might say, maybe in the short term, it seems to have been effective when they've adapted to local conditions, but maybe in the long term it's not going to be effective because in a competitive market, their close competitors are proving to copy the strategy. So maybe it won't be that effective. Some sort of conclusion, you can conclude any way you want, as long as you can back it up with arguments in the case. The other thing to remember is not to bring in any new information into your conclusion. You want to only conclude the points that you have argued above. And the final thing is to make sure you remember there is a balance to your arguments. 2 for, 2 against. And again, don't forget to define the key terms in the question. So here it would be globalization. Here you're basically defining Ansos's matrix by drawing it anyway. Here it would be multinational companies, which obviously we haven't fully covered yet. There's another topic on that. And here there isn't really one other than strategy. So you could talk about how strategy is long term. Okay. I think that's it. But you'll see all exam questions are the same, okay, in terms of layout. AO1, AO2. This one had 2 AO3 ones, okay. This AO3 one was only a 6 marker. So 1 for, 1 against, and then a conclusion. So same layout every time. That one was about Toyota, and this one we've been discussing is about McDonald's. Okay, so if you can get into that format of approaching test questions in the same way, you'll be fine.